The Faculty of Theology, the University of Latvia is currently privileged to host a special guest from Norway, from University of Oslo, Professor Marianne Bjelland Kartzow. She's New Testament scholar, and also in her research she addresses issues of diversity in religion and cultural complexity. Hi Marianne, it's very nice to have you here in Riga.
Hello, good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You just published the book you have edited with the title, and I have to read this to be precise, The Ambiguous Figure of the Neighbor in Jewish, Christian and Islamic Texts and Reception. Can you tell us what is this book about? Why the neighbor is so ambiguous?
Yes, I can tell you. It's the book is a shared project between different scholars coming from different fields. Someone studying Hebrew Bible, some studying New Testament. We have scholars working on Islamic text and Islamic religious practices. And the idea is that we get together all these different scholars, and we pay attention to a shared subject. And we decided to look at the neighbor, because our experience is that the neighbor, I mean, as in an everyday experience, a neighbor is someone that can be there at hand when you need it. You can borrow salt, you can borrow sugar, but you can also that can also be someone that potentially can kill you, that can destroy you, that can be the murderer, as we know from different places in the world during wartime, for example. So the neighbor is someone that is neither really near nor close. It's someone that are part of us, but also not part of us. It's a friend-enemy thing. So it's all these things that lies within this concept of the neighbor, the figure of the neighbor. So we wanted to use that as a starting point to look at different kind of traditions. You know, the Jewish tradition, the Christian tradition, the Islamic tradition, and see what do these different traditions do out of the neighbor. And first thing we found out, of course, or we already knew, is that all these three traditions have the same commandment: love thy neighbor. But it is articulated, formulated, practiced, theorized differently. So we wanted to somehow take everyday phenomenon. Everybody knows what it is, or most of us have experiences of being a neighbor. We wanted to take something quite common and everyday, down to earth. We wanted to start with that, and then use that as a lens to find out more about the differences and the similarities, and potential places for dialogue, for you know, having shared thoughts, finding very different ideas. So we somehow wanted to invite the religious neighbors into a neighbor conversation. This doubleness was what we aimed at, both to acknowledge that in our part of the world, these religions are neighbors. They live side by side, physically, but also, you know, more abstract. They are together in the same environment, same society. So I think we wanted to use the neighbor, and then we wanted to both look at this demand, or this commandment, love thy neighbor, but we also wanted to look at how is that in everyday life. How is it when people physically are neighbors? You know, is it really very easy to love? Well, in my home country, Norway, for example, we have most of the cases, before they get to the court system, there's a conflict kind of council that shall solve problems between people. And guess what is the most common topic in these conversations, in these conflicts? It's neighbor conflicts. So it is something about this, the whole figure, the whole concept, that we found very rich. And we found it a very good place to find new knowledge, to generate conversations, to open up new space for learning about other religions and learning about texts. So we both look at the sacred texts, and we also look at what is going on today in more contemporary practices. How are neighbors living together? What's the challenge in being a neighbor? Both in thinking about it theoretically, and also bringing different kind of material to the conversation.
You used in this book intersectional approach. Could you tell us what is it?
Yeah, I'll try to tell you. Yeah, we wanted to use intersectionality as a way, a tool, an analytical tool, a way to do our research. And intersectionality is a theory that comes originally from gender studies and anti-racist studies. And it is a tool that helps us to think about complex things and how they are intersecting, basically. And the idea is that, for example, when it comes to understanding discrimination, when it comes to understanding power, hierarchy, it's common to look at gender. Okay, male, female. That's a very easy system, or not. It's not a very easy system, but it's a given hierarchy. But what if we bring other categories into that? What, for example, in a United States context, when you bring race into the discussion? It's not exactly the same to be a black woman than to be a white woman. Something is happening to gender when you add ethnicity or add race or other kind of factors. So the whole idea about intersectionality is that these categories are not stable. They are mutually constructing and creating each other in a way. You have it's not operating in parallel. That either you can look at gender, or you can look at race, or you can look at age, or you can look at ability. No, you have to look at all these things together and see how they overlap and how they intersect. So I think, and this theory is used in many different fields, especially in law. When it came as a theory, it came from law, study of law, and also in sociology, anthropology, and then now religious studies, the last, and biblical studies, I would say the last 15, 20-ish, 10 years. So it's a tool that has become to be common. For example, when we study gender in the church, or gender in the Bible, or women in the Bible, we will not only say, oh, now we can count it's 200 women in the Bible. And an additional question would be, yeah, but what kind of women? Is this girls? Is it strange women, foreign women? Are they mothers? Are they single women? Are they widows? Are they slave women? And by asking about all these categories, we realize that this is a quite complex thing. It's really intersecting all these categories. It's not easy to study women in the Bible, or men in the Bible, or anything in the Bible, children in the Bible.
Maybe you can give an example how it could help us to understand the text, biblical texts.
Yeah. One text that is a colleague has worked on is, for example, the story about Lydia in Acts in the New Testament, where it is said that she is baptized. She's some convert, or she's baptized with her whole household. And in itself, just that it is a woman that is, addressed as the agent in that story, that's in itself very interesting. But hang on, who is this household? Who else can she decide on behalf of? She's a woman, but what about, for example, the boys and girls in that family? What about the female and male slaves in that family? What about maybe widows that stayed with her? I mean, it's important to not only focus on one category, but it's important to see the diversity there, and also to see the complexity. And also in studies of gender and feminism, it's important to see that sometimes it's also women that has the power over, or have the power over other women, or over other people in general. So, for example, when studying Lydia, I think intersectionality, it will not. Then we can't stop by saying Lydia is a woman and that's it. We need to be. This theory challenges us to ask more questions and to be more critical and more curious about what's actually going on in that text. It's super interesting when we open up that theories and invite these theories into the analysis of the ancient texts.
So it helps us to take into account the complexity actually of human life, that one person is not only to define by gender or by race or by age. We have to take into account all or at least as many as possible what we can find about the person or the figure in the biblical text. So it's a very interesting approach, I think, and very hopeful, I think, and can open our eyes for, as I said, for this diversity and complexity of the one person's life. But when we look at our societies, and of course we have different developments in our societies, different things that happen also within the religion and outside the religion, and what happens to religion in our societies. What do you think? How the religion will develop in the future? What is the future of religion?
Oh yeah, that's a very important question to ask, and I think that's a very important question to ask at the university, and also to ask our students, and also to be part of that conversation in the broader society. And I think religion can be a strong positive power, and it can be a strong negative power. You know, it has in itself, religions in plural have the potential to really build and to create space for freedom and creativity, but it has also the power to be destructive. And I think, it's of course, even though we are at the Faculty of Theology, it's hard to prophesize about the future, but still, when you invite me to talk about the future, I think it's important to pay attention to religion and how religions are operating in the society. And for example, by generating more knowledge about the mechanisms that religion are involved in. And one of the other reasons for me being here in Riga is that we together are part of this project working on religion and gender equality. That's a cooperation between the Baltic states and Norway. And we have a conference here these days. And the idea about that project, ReliGen, it is to work on, to understand exactly how gender and religion are intersecting, and to focus on gender equality, and to do to find more knowledge and to think about more how religion is operating when it comes to gender, and when it comes to gender roles, and when it comes to power in these different societies, and also to do some comparisons and look at the potential and the potential development, and really find out what is the state of the art, how is this operating now, what has happened with religion, what's going on with religion, and how is gender equality, taking place or not taking place, and both be constructive and critical and try to analyze this situation as it is. So I think it's very important to somehow monitor religion. I think that's a case for the future, to be more critical, but also more constructive. And that's another example I want to mention when you ask about the role of religion. I think the current pandemic situation in our part of the world, or maybe global, it's interesting what has happened to religion during the pandemic. It's interesting that I think many things has happened, and it's really too early to conclude on this. Of course, we are in the middle of it, and also it's starting to become more knowledge about it. But I think the fact that some people have really started to understand what community is, and what sharing is, and what being present with other people, how important that is to life. And in some contexts, religion has been part of that. Some people have missed more than anything. For example, the church or the mosque or the synagogue, the place where you can get together with other people, do service, do the rituals, do the prayers, do the readings. So I think it's exactly what religion has the potential to do, and to be a place where people get together, related to a divine being, or related to something existential important, something really, really important to them. I think the longing and the need and that people have missed religion, I think that's a very interesting sign. I'm not saying everybody, but I think there are some tendencies that something is very hard to do digital, and maybe religion is one of those things who has a challenge, because it requires our bodies, it requires our presence, it requires, the atmosphere, the sacred in a way. Although it's been developed a lot of good substitute and alternatives and hybrid solutions and everything, and we have learned so much new, but still, maybe there has been something going on, some acknowledgement, some experience that I think that we in the next years will have to think about. And maybe we will find out that religion actually fills a gap here. It has the potential to produce meaning, to give people a horizon, a rainbow over their life, whatever. So I think we're in a very interesting period for us interested in religion and gender as well, because so much is happening, and I don't know. I hope we will soon be able to experiment more with, to actually be together in doing religious practice.
Maybe one of the discoveries will be this time that our spiritual life needs our body. That's
very important.
Could be the conclusion of this time.
Yes, and the body, and also the interpersonal, the relational to other people, and also to the divine in a way. But you're right, that's very interesting.
So some years ago you decided to study theology. Do you remember what was your interest at that time? And maybe you can tell us what is your interest still today for theology.
Yeah, that's a privilege to be asked about. It's where the interest come from. I think I was interested in understanding religion. I think religion as such, because I did not grow up in a very religious context in my family. So I think I was very curious about what is this thing. I was attracted to it because I'm that kind of person who are spiritual. I'm born like that in a way. I like silence, prayer. I like poetry. I like culture. All these things. So I think I started my life with this curiosity. But then I wasn't only interested in learning about it, just how it looks or what people do. I also wanted to learn about the content. I was curious about thinking. I was curious about the texts. I wanted to learn the language. I was interested in understanding how did this develop. And since I think before I was Christian, I was a feminist in a way. So I think I was very inspired by understanding a religion that had such a favor for men. I think that attracted me also to understand that. And you can't understand that just by looking at it on the surface. You need to dig. You need to go really down. You need to go back to the sources in a way. So that's it was a personal thing, but it was also a political thing that I saw. I was starting my studies at the beginning of I think 1990. What happened in Europe? What happened in the world? These changes. I felt that religion was both our something brilliant and something terrible. So I thought it was this double, both understanding the good side of it and the bad side of it, and be part of it, be inside it, in order to change it. Be critical, but within. Because and as I studied and also started doing research, PhD and postdoc, and started to work more as a professional theologian, and also I'm ordained minister. I also work in the church every now and then. I serve as a pastor as well when I have the time, and I think this to be both part of it, but also be a critical part of it, a constructive part of it, trying to find out what is good here, what is potential, and what is destructive. For example, when it comes to gender, where we have experiences in the global church where gender discrimination of gay and lesbians are taking place. So I think this to be really devoted and part of it, but also an intellectual and critical voice within that church. I think that was my journey. That's where my journey somehow are now or are ending now. Is that I have of course many colleagues and friends that started out just like me, like a young, very curious and interested and stuff, and then they grow up and they left the church. I think I grow up and are even more devoted to the church and even more believe in the concept of the church and hope for it to really survive and continue as a good place to be for people worldwide.
How do you think we as theologians, as researchers, and as people who do religious studies, how we can help our societies?
Yeah, that's
what could be your contribution?
Yeah, what could be our contribution? I think because theology is such a broad study, can be categorized, you know, alongside with the humanities, but also alongside with the social sciences, and sometimes also with other interdisciplinary places. So I think the acknowledgement of the broadness, I think that is very important, because we theologians are trained to be, you know, to be good listeners and to be engaged in very many different directions. We are often criticized for being too broad. We sometimes we're interested in everything. In theory, theology is about everything. And I think that to insist on the engagement, and to insist on, you know, continuing conversation, continuing the dialogue, learning new things from each other, from ourselves, from the world. I think that is what we can contribute with this overall view of, you know, of things. And also I'm thinking that in the current situation, many crises we talked about are going on, but what about the environmental crisis? I'm thinking that a discipline like, or a field like theology, where we have this, you know, we have this myth about creation, we have these ideas about the world belongs to God, it's the creation of God, but we also have impulses to take care of the creation. We have a really strong responsibility embedded in our religion, in our Christian religion, and also in the Abrahamic religions, to be loyal to the creation, and to take care of the creation, and to interact with it. Although we do have, you know, a past where these has been interpreted more like to rule over the creation and to destroy the creation. But I think in theology there are potential really important resources to help us to be more constructive when it comes to the environment, to the planet, but also when it comes to the other people, to take care of each other, and to take care of the next generation, and to be concerned about the next generation. So I think theology, and especially young students now that are starting studying theology, I'm really impressed. I think they are doing a very important task. They are taking the challenge from us, the rest of the society. Really be responsible, learn something, go out there, listen to people, initiate dialogue, be a positive contributor, and take care of the planet. So
to love the neighbor.
To love the neighbor, and to see the global planet also as your neighbor.
Exactly. Yeah. And to love the neighbor who is living close to us, and also not so close to us.
That's true. That's true. Yes.
Thank you very much, Marianne, for this inspiring interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.